Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are going to continue to chapter 1. Okay, previously we have discussed about what is record. Okay, so in chapter 1, actually we only need to know what are the terms or definition of terms that we are going to use in records management. Okay, so next. Okay, so in records management in chapter 1, we need to know the terms of data, information, document, record center, archival repository, and lastly is evidence. So these are the terms that you need to know in records management. Okay, so the first one, what is data? So data represent of information in a formalized manner suitable for communication, interpretation, and processing generally by a computer system. Raw data refers to unprocessed data. For example, data is your student ID number. So this is a data of the student number of the ID student number. Okay. Another one, you can give the plate number. So that one we call it as a data too. And then again, what else? The address of a person is a data. Okay. Next one is information. What is information? Information lead to knowledge regardless of the medium of its conveyance to a person or more. So information is actually a knowledge that human being perceive through one or more of their senses. For example, when you listening to a music, so you know what is the song of that music. Okay, so it give you information. The song of the music is okay, sorry for interruption by my kids. Okay, so information. Okay, and any information that lead to a knowledge of something. Okay, so when you read a newspaper, so the headline is about what we call the price of the gold is raised up. Okay, so that's the information. Okay, the next one. Oops. What's wrong with my slide? Okay. Next one is a document. Yes, I do believe you have gone through about the document. You have learned about this one during 1-to-1, during 131. Okay, so the document is actually a medium through which information is imprinted for convey to one person or more, and also can be defined as the smallest unit for filing. For example, you are submitting an assignment. Okay, so you are submit to your lecturer a piece of a paper or a document. Okay, so yeah, that's why we call it as the smallest unit for filing. We can use it for filing. Okay, for example, you have a document or example a notes for subject 131. So that one is a document. Okay, in paper-based RM is records management system. A document is usually defined as the smallest unit for filing. And this one is also referred as a non-paper based, such as the computer file. Okay, when you create a folder in your desktop or your computer or your laptop, and then you put any document, any file in that folder, we call it as a document. Okay, for example, you have assignment. You name the folder of the assignment is assignment 1, and you have a document inside that assignment. The one we call it as a document, but is not a non-paper based. Okay. Next one. Okay, so when we talk about records, okay, in the previous class, I have asked the student, what records do you have in yourself? Okay, so a record is actually recorded information regardless of media or characteristics created or received and use it in operation of organization. Okay, this one is more focusing to the organization or records of the organization, whether it is a public or a private. Okay, and then it provides evidence of a business transaction. Thus, a record is a document with evidentiary value. Okay, So records is actually for this semester we are focusing records in the organization. Now I'm going to give another perspective. What are the example of records in you yourself? Okay, as a human being, we have a record of ourselves. The evidence of the existence of us as a human is our birth certificate, and then our IC number, and then you as a driver that have a license. So the license, the license card, okay, that's evidence for you that you have a license. Okay, and then what else? Okay, you as a human being, as a personal, as individual, you have an account with a bank. Okay, so you have a transaction with the bank every month, and you have withdraw the money. And also when you do online shopping, all the invoice, the receipt, okay, everything is evident of you doing transaction shopping online. So there's another perspective of records in you yourself. And then another one is a notes for your subject every semester. Okay, for last semester you have learned about 145, you have your own notes, right? Okay, that one is also a record. And then for this semester, if you pass all the subject, you are no longer use that record. So for this semester, you are going to have another new record for this semester based on the subject you have take for this semester. Okay, so these are the records. Okay, so records, there are two types of record. The first one is the public records, and another one is a private records. Usually students have what we call confusing which one is a public records and which one is a private records. Now we are going to take a look what are the definition of each of these. So the public records is records created or received and maintained in any public sector agency. Okay, and on the other hand, the private records is records created or received and maintained by non-governmental organizations or individuals relating to their private and public affairs. Okay, I do ask the student, your account, Facebook account, is it public and or private records? Okay, most of the student, they answer it is a public records because they set their what we call Facebook account as a public. Okay, for your information, your public account, your Facebook account, your Instagram, your TikTok, everything is what we call a private records. Why? Because created by individual relating to their private and public affairs. Okay, even though you set your Facebook or your IG everything as a public, but again it's a private record. Okay, so what are the public records? Public records, for example, like JPA, Jabatan Perkhidmatan Awam, SPA, okay, any government sector, any what we call records created by the government sector. That one is what we call the public records. Okay, next one. The next one, records can be used. The first one, we can use the record. This one is in organization, whether it is a public or private. We can use the record to impressing claims due to a person. So for example, you are going outstation for 3 days and 2 nights, and then you can claim your what we call your accommodation and your transport. Okay, so you need to have a proof of accommodation or a proof of transportation. Okay, you can use that one for claim. And then to show that someone is responsible for a particular action. For example, they found out there's a mistake in the project paper, and then they take a look who are the one who preparing this project paper. Okay, so we can know who are the person who responsible to complete that project paper or do the mistake for that particular project paper. Okay, and then to tell us the story of what has happened in the past. Okay, most of the organization, for example, they have their own history. For example, tabung haji, okay, or UiTM. UiTM, before this we are known as what we call Institute Teknologi Mara before they convert to UiTM. Okay, there's a history there. You can see any whether public or private or any public or private organization, they have their story or their background story. about what has happened in the past, or what we call the how they build up. Okay. And then number 4, to boost the corporate image of a particular firm by showing the success in its long past. For example, we can see that this one is in the bank. Sometimes the banks, for example, Tabung Haji or CMB, they show, oh, this year we have, for example, 10 million, what we call 10 million sale, for example, or MACD. They managed to give a donation about 250,000 K, for example. Okay, that one is a part of a record. Okay, you can see this one is most in the you can see this one mostly whether in the media or in the web web of that organization. Sorry. And last one is to tell us of our past mistake and provide continuity in charting our future. Okay, I'm going to take a look this one in perspective in your as individual. When you are doing your quiz 1, you have a lot of mistake, and then you learn from your past. You take note, you are not going to take to make the same mistake in quiz 1, and then in quiz 2 you perform much better. So the same thing goes to the records for organization, whether it is public or private. Okay, so they will not repeat the same mistake, and this one is provide what we call charting, continuity in charting their future. Okay. The next one, okay, these are the form of the records. So records can be in the form of certificate, for example, your birth certificate, your SPM, and then this one is individual. Okay, in organization, for example, you are going for a workshop in that organization, and then you pass and you get the certificate. Circular, okay, you can see this circular. I think they do throw this in front of your house, in front of your house, especially like Tesco, Giant. I'm not sure. Maiden, do they do that? I'm not sure. But I think they have this circular when you go into this type of mall. Okay, and then this. I'm not sure whether you still use the this or not, but some of the what we call certain word, they require the use of the this. For example, they want to burn in other word, we copying a document in that this. Okay, file, yes, you do have a file. Okay, in any organization or individual, you have your own file. Okay, for example, you have your own file based on a subject. Okay, for example, you have 6 subject this semesters, and then you have 6 file, and for this 6 file for each of the code. Okay, and then film is also known as a record. Okay, maybe it's a documentary film. Okay, and then form, okay, form is also known as a record. Why? When you fill up in any form, you are giving a information or a record. For example, when you go to when you what we call register with UiTM, they ask you to fill up the form, right? As to continue your study to UiTM. So when you fill up the form, actually you are giving the data or the information. Okay, that's why form is known as a record. And then microfilm, poster, yes, you are familiar with the poster of what we call sale, and then a sign poster in UiTM, what we call no smoking. And then reports, okay, I do believe you have learned about report in 172, you make report. Okay, and then you are join any what we call club, okay, club, society club, so you also have a report. And then sign, oh, I have mentioned about the sign earlier. So for example, here is danger, do not enter. Okay, so now what is the record center? Record center is actually a building designed or adapted for the low cost storage, maintenance, and communication of semi-current records pending their ultimate disposal. Okay, so in other words, what we call any organization, whether it is a big or a small company, they have their own record center. I mean a building or what we call a storage for them to put their records. Okay, archive. When we talk about archive is actually also a record, usually but not necessarily non-current record of enduring value selected for permanent preservation. Archive will normally be preserved in archival repository, storehouse and warehouse. Okay, in Malaysia, we have Arkid Negara. Okay, for example, like Perjanjian Pangkor, everything. That one is what we call a long-term record. They have what we call a history of the past in Pangkor, what happened in Pangkor. Okay, they put that type of document in a paper in archive. Okay. So most organization which is that operate around maybe around 10 to 20 years, they have this kind of archive. Okay, so we are not going to ask this one in your quiz, but you just additional information. So actually you have three type of archive: public archive, private archive, and manuscript collection. Okay, this is additional information. We are not going to ask this one in your quiz 1, quiz 2, or your final examination. Okay, archival repository is actually a building or part of a building in which archives are preserved and made available for consultation, also known as an archive. Okay, this one is what I call Arkid Negara. We have this one in, I'm not sure, Jalan Duta or what, in KL, I think. Okay, now the last part is evidence. So what is evidence? Evidence is actually an indication, sign, testimony in a support of a conclusion. So in order to become evidence, okay, the records must have the following characteristic. So in order for records to become an evidence, they need to have these 4 characteristics. The first one is permanence, okay, kekal, authentic, value as official source of information, and lastly must be unique. So now we are going to take a look one by one of this one. What is permanent? Permanence is recorded information should be permanent, kena kekal, so that it can be used as evidence. So if the records keep on changing all the times, it cannot be used with a certainty to show that something had actually taken place or that someone has been responsible for it. That's why the records, in order to become an evidence, they must be permanent, cannot be changed all the time. The next one is authentic. So authentic is actually document accurately what actually transpired and indicate what was actually the state of affairs at a particular point on time. So in authentic, in order for evidence to become authentic, they cannot be changed or altered as an afterthought. Okay, this is number 2, the characteristic for records to become an evidence. The third one, in order for records to become an evidence, the records must have the characteristic of values as official source of information. So, the record should have authority so that they should be considered to be true, official account or report that will have universal validity as the one true records. So, the manner in which the records have created and cared for will demonstrate their value as undisputed source of information. And the last one, in order for records to become an evidence, the record must have the last characteristic, which is unique. So the records are unique in that they are documents of a single or individual event or transaction that will not be repeated in the same time, at the same place, or for the same action. Okay, so that's it for chapter 1. Again, I recap. In chapter 1, we only learned the definition of terms that we are going to use in this for the whole semester. But again, in chapter 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we have a lot of another additional terms that we are going to use in records management. Okay, so that's it for now. Thank you so much and Assalamualaikum.